Hi, everybody. Welcome. I have Chele Kay with me here. She is an intuitive strategist and healer. In a nutshell, I never know really what to call myself. I keep switching.
Hear that.
I know. And I'm excited to have Chele on board. I met her last year in Columbus, Ohio at a leadership training. And I use her Oracle deck. She makes her own Oracle decks as well. So she's also a very talented artist at drawer of geometric, sacred geometric lines. And honestly, Chele, that's impressive. You know what? Do you have? I should get up and go get a deck.
I
Do you
do
have
have
a
the
deck,
deck with
Cindy?
me. I
Oh, good.
do.
I don't
I
know.
do.
Yeah. Let's just dive right in. Tell us your story. What? Well, you know what? I want to pause, and I want to give a moment of. I don't usually say a moment of silence, but I just want to give a moment of peace and prayer for Mary Magdalene because today is her feast day.
Hmm.
And I have in my heart always wanted to have a big ritual for her on this day, but I'm not ready yet. And I I'm getting there. And every day Mary Magdalene to me represents so many things, but she represents Venus as well. And so, but I am a priestess in her apostolic succession as a feminine priestess, the priestesshood of Heroes Gamos.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to, I don't know, I hate being silent at a talk show. Just take a breath and connect with her. It's coming out of me to talk more about so this is her feast day named by the Vatican. And so all the intuitive hints at the origin of Heroes Gamos, even in the declaration of this day being her feast day, the 22nd has always been numerologically the number of the Magdalene.
Mm-hmm.
And we also start Leo season, so it's really nice. You know, she's the queen, and this is a royal time. Leo is a royal sign of the king and queen and the heart chakra and the path of the heart. So uh, she's extraordinary. So thank you for that, Chele. Okay, I she brought out. So I was sharing with you. So the work of sacred geometry is also the work of Mary Magdalene.
There you
And
go.
there she is. There she is. Chele drew that.
Good.
Did you draw that all from coming through your being? A lot of people call that channeling, but that's a
Yeah.
wow. Was it scratch draws at first, or are you a really clear line drawer at first? I'm curious what your creation process was.
I'm a really clear line drawer, and I can definitely get into the like how I do this work, because this isn't just the cards. I did do 50 um, drawings specifically for cards, but I also do um, drawings as part of what I offer to others in their own types of sacred geometry. And what I do when I draw these is I actually mathematical principles, and it's a drawing compass. So it's a lot of it is intuitive, but a lot of it is also like based off of just geometry and sacred geometry.
Yeah.
So.
Well, so tell us your story. You can take a long time too. We interview for about 45 minutes to an hour, however long you feel you have your energy for. You don't have to give me your 15-second elevator pitch. Give us a nice background. How did you become an intuitive guide and want to be inspired to get into this work?
It's interesting. So I'm going to start with, I'm Chele Kay, and I am an intuitive guide. I'm also an intuitive coach, which is a very specific thing for me, and I'll get into that later. And I do actually do what I consider channeling work as well.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like I've always been a healer. And what I mean by that is there have been times in my life where I kind of denied it and like turned away from it and didn't pursue what I knew were gifts of mine. But I remember astral projecting when I was 5. I didn't know that's what it was called, but like I remember that. And like I distinctly remember a situation in my house where I was very young, 5 or 6, somewhere around there, and the kitchen caught on fire. And my mom rushed my sister and I out of the house. And I was raised in the in non-denominational Christian religion, and so as a 5, 6 year old, I'm out back. I was saying a mantra, basically praying as I understood at 5, and I was praying that the fire would go away. And I remember standing outside and sitting on the ceiling of the kitchen at the same time. And my mom tells the story that suddenly the fire started to recede. It was this like massive fire that it should have just eaten up the entire kitchen. And suddenly the fire started to recede. And they have no explanation for it. And that's one of the first situations I remember of like, there's something here. And then again at like 6, like 7 or 8, maybe 9, I would often interject little nuggets of wisdom that it wasn't really clear where they came from, but they would just like suddenly I would like walk through. My parents did Bible studies, so I would walk through the Bible study room while they were doing Bible study, and I would like pick up on a nugget of the conversation, just say something, and then suddenly the whole room was silent because there was so much wisdom in what I said. And as a 7 or 8 or 9 year old, you just like that isn't real. You just don't know that. So, um, so yeah. Um, and
So
then
I went bye-bye for a minute.
okay, good.
You guys, I think I've been having weird wireless glitches since COVID,
Yeah.
and the same system I've had for 4 years. And it's on my list. I've been hesitant because of all the expansion of our energies right now and thinking, oh, it'll kind of, and it's not. So I apologize because this is on my list of things to do. I need to get it looked at officially. I keep thinking it's multidimensional work, because
Mhm.
we're pretty juiced. Shell, you
Yeah.
were sharing about. So I know I was in the middle of, and I hate the interruptions of everyday life like this when people are in profound stories. Um, but it is what it is, and learning how to do this with grace, because as far as I call this the renaissance of the soul and the technical age, it's part and parcel. I'm being shown that this is part of the modern era of technical
Yeah.
issues. Probably, I don't know what kind of issues happened 1,000 years ago. Probably more didn't have to. I'm trying to think of like natural disasters or weird things that would have been more common then. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, you said something really extraordinary about the fire, and there was no explanation that receded. And were you? I was just
I didn't.
visualizing when you were saying that, like a Yoda
Yeah.
image. Not,
When I was
yeah.
5, I didn't know any different. I was little, and so for me, it was just like I was just sitting on the ceiling, and I was outside. No big deal. But it wasn't until years later where my mom and I had been talking about that house fire, and she was like, "Yeah, the fire just stopped. Like it just stopped, and we don't understand how it happened or why it happened because evidently it was I didn't know this at the time because I was so young, but it was a grease fire, and there was grease everywhere, and so by no means should that have actually stopped, and yet it did." And so I don't know exactly what occurred, but I do know that there was something that occurred there. And then, you know, I, uh, I had things that happened at like 7, 8, that I was, of like nuggets of wisdom that would come out. And then I kind of started to develop some sensitivity, some physical sensitivities to things that I associate with energy. Now I didn't at the time when I was in my teens. And then when I was in my early 20s, I had the thing that it was like one of those like, wow, I don't even know what to do with this kind of concept was I met a friend of a friend, had no connection to the person otherwise. We were going on a spring break trip and he happened to be he happened to own a beach house that a friend of mine, so my friend of mine knew him, and I like literally met the guy, shook his hand, and I said, "Oh, you've had 6 surgeries." And he goes, "Yeah, how did you know that?" I said, "I don't know, but your seventh one will be fine." And we both had this moment of like, wow, this is a lot. And like, I didn't have any idea where it came from. Right after that, I kind of stopped for a while. I just kind of like shut everything down. Um, and then it wasn't until probably about 6 or 7 years ago that I had what I call Epiphany Week, which for me was everything in my life was falling apart. Kind of like some people may call it the dark night of the soul. Some people might call it shadow work. But it was essentially my relationship was falling apart, my job was falling apart, my health was like drastically deteriorating. And I was just like spiraling downward. And then I had this moment where it was suddenly like, I don't have to live like this. I don't have to be like this. I can, like, it was like this moment of just popping open where
Mhm.
suddenly everything came rushing back in. And overnight, it was like my health, like a long-standing health issue that started when I was in my teens that I do believe is energy based, just vanished overnight because suddenly I was letting energy flow again. And then my relationship like was basically changed in 2 days time, completely from like almost separating completely, getting a divorce to everything like okay again. My job shifted to a new position that paid me more money, and it just like everything suddenly opened up the second that I said, okay, I'm here, I'm going to do this. And not just that, but then I started seeing so I'm claircognizant rather than clairvoyant. I get knowings or understandings. And suddenly I started getting impressions of how things connected in ways that like you wouldn't have expected or wouldn't make sense normally. Like, you know, it's kind of like if you've ever seen Harry Potter, it's like when he drinks the bottle of liquid luck and suddenly like he's going to go to Hagrid's because that's the thing that makes sense today. Like it's stuff like that that happens now. And that's what opened up for me about that time. And so then after that, it was literally just trying to figure out how do I grow these gifts? How do I use these gifts? And how do I share them with others in ways that are going to be useful? Because I'm a very big proponent about, like you said, making this real life. Like we are in the age of soul evolution and technology evolution together. And we get to work in this very real world with like sometimes very real limitations. And how do I take this really powerful thing that I'm suddenly willing to tap into and welcoming in that is beneficial and supportive for what I'm up to and for people around me? How do I suddenly use this in the age of technology and like moving the ball forward in a very real sense in our world today? And so that's been my progress of doing that, of creating that space.
Yeah,
But
this
yeah,
show is all about that.
yeah.
We have people that are coming on here, and it's mostly women. I do think there will be some men. I don't hold out for, but it'll be very interesting men
Mhm.
that come on. And we have a good head on our shoulders, and we tried the responsible route. And we're
Yeah.
not the psychics with the 1-800 number on the website because I got flagged by Wix as a pseudoscientist. We often get flagged because we don't get a lot of payment processes look at us as if we're not real.
Yep.
And that is what mainstream society is still telling us. And I am telling everybody that this is real. And we as human beings are more related in our genetics to fungus than any other kingdom on earth. Fungus is psychic and absorbent. We are all psychic and we are all porous and we are all
Mhm.
clear knowledge. We have these gifts, but some of us we're more born aware of who we truly are. It's not we were born with these gifts. We were born aware of our true nature. And there's a key difference here. But some of us, but we all, I call us X-Men because we all do have, like you said, you're more claircognizant, and they're still not letting mediums, and I don't like to call myself a psychic and a medium, and because you can get flagged. And that's not, that kind of became the hoaxy. I'm not saying those people are a hoax, but they don't give a good image to what this is. And I don't,
Yeah.
They played a role of being, and they still do, of being this more entertainer than actual healer. And that's how I have seen it. But maybe that's what they had to for a while. And I don't mean that in judgment. I mean that's not what this is about.
Yeah,
And
that's why I call myself an intuitive rather than a psychic, because I don't see myself as psychic. Claircognizant, yes, but I work with energies that are real. The way I look at it is it's like a sense that science hasn't explained yet. Like they know what smell is, they know what vision is, because we have an organ that's literally visible where you can talk about it. But this is something that we might have an organ that maybe we don't know or isn't proved yet by science, that taps into this sense that, we have way more than five senses. We have tons, but it taps into this. And I really do. I believe you're right that everybody has the capability to be and to have this. And some people have tapped into it and some people haven't yet.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, I was born tapped into it. And no matter what abuse and what mainstream culture, because it's abuse, it's trauma, told us it wasn't true, it did a number on me, but it never fooled me. I never, and I'm jealous of people, Shell, and I think you're the same. I never got fully gaslighted where I fell asleep completely. I just more hid. And I was like, I know something's not right, but I don't know what to do with it. And they never, there's still this piece of me that's like freaking jealous that I didn't get tricked. I was like, why didn't I get tricked about this last year?
Why couldn't I just go back to sleep? This sucks. Yeah, I felt
know,
that.
but I don't know with you, but I never was. And it seems like if you have this great power to stop a kitchen fire, you never really were. And I've noticed this with a lot of women that I've been drawn to, especially with women healers. We all had, I don't know, that just seems to be my emphasis. Like there was you'd have to like seriously drug me and make me a vegetable to turn off this stuff. Yeah. So there is some of us that come into earth plane that are a little bit more like juiced out, and we know it. And anyway, but that's incredible, Shell. I mean, that's similar to my birth story that I share with others about my wing being too big to come out and being stuck. My shoulder got dislocated when I was in the birth canal. To the family with the last name Archangels. Not a coincidence. So, nope. And I love that story. And it's true, everybody. It's true. I have doctors, and it's not a made up story. And Shell had the fire. You had the fireman. Like there's so many things that go unexplained, but they're actually very normal. They're actually they're way more. And like you said, with the surgeries, and we're shocked, so part of this show is to talk about these things. They are miraculous, but I don't like to use the word I don't care. Potato. This is semantics here, but to normalize or make mainstream or to bring awareness, whatever here, of these phenomenons that really are actually not phenomenons. They're very true. We are multidimensional beings, and we're very powerful beings. Human beings have great power and great gifts. Mm-hmm. So, okay. Thank you let's go into my next question goes right into what are your offerings and your specialties. And I think this would be a good chance for you to explain your process with your drawings. And also, like you said, you wanted to talk more about your intuitive coaching.
Yeah. So I actually, I do a range of things. The stuff that I do, I do a lot of normal, quote unquote, whatever that means, stuff around coaching, because I actually am a degreed engineer, and I come from a background of project management, which when you say that and you're like, oh, and also I'm an intuitive, and also I happen to be a yoga instructor, and also like, it doesn't make sense to people. Like, you're an engineer, but you believe in this esoteric stuff? Like, yes, actually I do. And it's real for me. but I go from the perspective of everything from intuitive coaching to I do channel. I do some channeling in my drawings, but I also do some channeling in readings and in some of my other intuitive work. Um, and I do what I call acceleration services, which I would love to explain because I've never heard anybody else who does this, so I'd love to explain it. But the thing I guess I want to share first is definitely my mandalas and my oracle deck. So I actually spent about 2 months right after Epiphany Week. I needed something to de-stress me because I had this I kept feeling like I was overwhelmed all the time. It was like basically getting downloads constantly because I had suddenly said, okay, I'm ready for it. And so it was just like so much. And so I would actually just sit at the kitchen table and I would do these in the evening. And I just did them as a relaxation to start with. Um, and I just started creating these mandalas. Um, and so some of them are incredibly like simple, and some of them are deeply intricate. And there's 58 total. And I didn't start them off as an oracle deck. I simply started them off as a meditation and for myself to support me in processing through some of this stuff. And then I realized there were themes to them. And I got through all the drawings and I realized there were 49 essentially circled images that were basic, like just basic circles. And then the 50th image was not a basic circle, it covered the whole page. And
Mm.
so I suddenly realized that literally what I had been drawing for the last 2 months was an oracle deck, and I had no idea. Um, and so it's actually been about a 2 year process to get them from the original image creation to getting into these decks. I also intuited all the names of the cards, and there's three kind of guide words at the bottom. This particular deck does not come with a book, and it doesn't come with a book because it's an intuitive deck. It's not about what do I think the cards mean. I give some suggestions, but it's really about what do you see in the cards and what does the reader see in the cards, or what does the person who's getting the reading see in the cards. And so like they all do have names and they all do have about 3 words for each. So I don't know if you guys can see. So blossom is fruitful, sprouting, and arrival. And there's the image. So they all have that. And the deck is like 49 cards, 7 of which are in color, the rest are in black and white. And then that's one of the just products that I offer. One of the other things that I do is I do mandalas for basically like special order mandalas that I draw for whatever purpose that someone is looking for. So I tap into what they're up to and what they want and what they're trying to manifest or what they're trying to pull forward in themselves. And then I create a unique mandala drawing for them. So
Mm.
this one was for someone who is looking to organize their life around something specific. This one was one that I did for somebody for business. This one was a drawing for someone wanting to open up spiritual connection further. And then this one is actually my personal one that I drew for myself. That's about the layers that are within my life right now.
That
Um,
looks so Celtic, like a Celtic knot.
yeah, yeah, and they're all based
Yeah.
off of a drawing compass, a ruler, and then depending on what comes through, they can be divided into sections of 12, 6, 3, 5,
You're
4.
so
I've
talented,
done,
Shell. Like I
thank
don't
you.
know any woman doing this work. I know
Yeah.
of a couple men because it tends to be more with patriarchy and over the long term. Mostly men have kind of I done the engineering, but
Mhm.
that's insanely. Are you familiar with the movie Arrival with Amy Adams
No,
in it?
no, I'm
It's
not.
funny you said the word arrival, and
Mm,
I invite our audience as well to check this film out. But the aliens speak in what's called nonlinear orthography, and it's
hmm,
symbology, it's sigils. And similarly to what Shell is doing, is it's actually searing something in the back of your retina, and it does something in your brain that sinks into your whole being. And I don't know how to fully explain this, but it transcends linear time. So then
yeah.
it becomes multidimensional. instead of our words can be multidimensional too, but it's it's fascinating. I think and you even look like Amy Adams. You are kind of walking this. You're sort of a combination of her character and the aliens who are drawing these symbols, and she's able to decipher them. And every time I watch the movie, what comes to me is retina. Is that they're
Mhm.
drawing the backs of the retina, and I feel that way too when I look at your a mandala or mandala, whatever you want to call it. I feel like there's something that's going on intuitively with. Is that ring a bell to you, Shell? Like it works with the retina and some kind of association with the brain and being able to cognitively wrap your head around the multidimensionality of our beingness.
Yeah, and it's interesting because that's what I really feel like when I create one of these for someone, or when like I'm just doing them to do them, because sometimes there are occasions where I just draw them because they're coming through. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and um, what I kind of feel like is that they're tapping into something that is more than just the words, and it's more than just it's like the energy that really exists where words can't reach, and it supports in really creating a focus. And then it does, like using these, I've had people tell me that it does shift their perspectives on certain parts of their life, or certain parts of what they're considering. And it really does, in my experience, it shifts the perception of the brain. And I don't know the science behind it because I've done the research on it, but I really feel like there is something that is connected directly to to what I'm doing. And the fact that when I do like a commissioned piece, like somebody asked for a
Yeah.
specific, that I'm tapping into the energy that they want to create and the energy that they are now. And it's like this mandala is a bridge to get them there specifically.
Yeah. It's really
Um,
neat. It's
yeah.
very neat what you do, Shell. I really neat. I just have to. I mean, I've been using her deck for a couple months now, and honestly, it's kind of. Oh, how do I say this? I've had to ease myself into using it because I just started using Oracle decks a year ago, and I started out with the tarot, and the tarot really does make a ton of sense to me because it's very Italian. What I
Yeah.
started realizing was the tarot comes from Italy.
Yep.
No one talks about that. And I was like, I know this because this looks like Dante. And when I studied in college, I was like, why is nobody talking about the connection between Dante and the tarot? Why are no scholars doing this? If they are, I haven't heard of them. So I've been doing the tarot, but the tarot has a lot of followers. And so they have a lot of descriptions. Where with Shell's deck, nobody's, there's no projection of other people's interpretations, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I love the tarot. Love it. There's room for all these different gifts. But what I really love about your work, Shell, is that you've opened this container up for people to create their own resonance with the sigil, with these symbols. It's really a sigil. It's because it's, I don't even want to use the word symbol. It is and it isn't, but it's so multi-layered.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't really quite come into a full practice with your deck yet. It's stumping me, but maybe I'm just not ready, but it's stumping me. Like I'm not fully in alignment with this deck yet. And I'm like, because I think that's kind of the point though, is no one's telling me what it is.
Mm-hmm. That's
When I
exactly what the deck
Google
is
the
about.
tarot, yeah, it's neat, Shal. What you do is cool as hell. I got mad respect for these drawings.
Ah, thank
Mad
you.
respect.
So the other things that I do, so that's my artwork,
Yeah,
surrounded the work that I do intuitively. But then I also do, because I am an engineer and a project manager,
yeah.
like by certification, I can, like, somehow the I can make sense of the intuitive stuff that's coming through and putting it in very like basic, do this, do that, here's the thing kind of concepts for people. And so I do intuitive coaching, and for me that's supporting people in coming to their goals and getting through the stuff that's actually behind their goals, because most people don't accomplish their goals not because of wanting to or not wanting to, but it's like the trauma and the blocks that are in our head that tell us we can't. And so I support people in removing those blocks on an intuitive level. And that's like the lower end of the stuff that I do as far as some like what I offer. And then I do higher end work, which is channeled messages, because that's direct line stuff. And then I also do what's called acceleration services. And acceleration services are for people who really want to get their lives moving and they're not afraid to confront what's standing in their way. Because this is like accelerated shadow work and accelerated like meeting the deep stuff that's holding us back in a very rapid fire way. And not every like this is not something that that the average person can handle. You really have to be ready for it. And so when I do acceleration sessions for people, I'm very clear that like what's coming through is what's coming through. Whether or not you like it is your business. Whether or not you do it is your business. But it's there and it's an offering. And what it actually is for me is I get this. The best way I can explain it is I get this fractal image of somebody standing in the middle of a sphere. And if you think of every possible decision the person could make as the edge of the sphere around them, and then when they make the decision, they move into a different tree of decisions, I can see the sphere, and then I can see about 4 decision trees out from every decision. And it's really like it's intense, like mental and energetic work to be able to see this for someone. But say like you really wanted to start a business and you're like really gung ho about starting a business, but you want it to start a business because you want to connect with people. So I can tap into all of the decisions that are around you that are possible. And I can look at the ones that are associated with the business. And I can say, like, these are the things to do if you want to head in the direction of that business that's going to connect with people. Like, this is the type of thing you need to consider. These are the decisions you need to consider. Am I going to tell you how to do it? No, but I'm going to give you like kind of the broad strokes keys of how to get to where you want to go based off of all the decisions that are surrounding you in this moment. And I don't know anybody else who does that. Like I have no idea. Like maybe people call it something different, but that's what it's quite literally. I help support people in what is the decision, or what is the idea you want to head for, and where are the decision points to get you there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really confrontive work. Like it really shows where people are holding themselves back and where they're mentally stuck or emotionally stuck, or they have trauma they get to work through, or breakthroughs they get to have, or connections that they get to create for their own life. So it's really powerful stuff, and it can be really overwhelming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like your name for it. I did a lot of that work last year, and that was partly why I didn't continue on with our leadership training.
Yeah.
I
And
was
I
on
hear
my,
that.
I did. I overwhelmed my system. And last year, Jupiter was in Sagittarius. And I learned that Jupiter's misunderstood because Jupiterian energy is not abundance, it is amplification. So whatever is happening, he'll amplify, or that energy will amplify.
Yep.
So it's not necessarily picking what's good, wrong, dark, light. So you need to be aware. And I didn't understand at the time when I was working with Jupiter, and I have a lot of Sagittarius in my chart, that I was amplifying the amount of advice I was being told. And this year I'm coming down from that, and I've actually had to, like, for my own sanity, and not just my own sanity, for my own realignment. It's not sanity. I take that back. It's my own alignment. Is I've heard so much. Now I need to align my being with this. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious how, I like what you're saying though. I think, but I have found personally, I'm in the middle of this realignment, and that I cannot accelerate this alignment. So those skills that I was using to help me get to this true place where I'm at, I can't use those anymore. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, it's at this time. So
yeah. And it's like acceleration is, it's really got to be something that we're ready for. It can't just like, sometimes it need to just take a moment to integrate and then accelerate and then integrate and then accelerate. Mm-hmm. And so there is that's part of the coaching that I do provide for people is coaching on the cycles. Like when is it possible to do the most work, and then when do you need to rest? Because we all have cycles like that. We all need to ramp up
Yeah,
and rest. Rest. It's just natural. It's required. But
it
yeah,
is. It is required. However, I feel like mainstream business culture does not give that enough. I mean, it's almost like it doesn't exist, and it's really an ego. It's really strongly an ego because our mindset, and I
yeah,
really I clash with that. I come up against that clash of I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing, but I need to. My body is. I call it tuning our piano. We have some of us
mm,
only play 8 keys on our body or 12 keys, and I'm trying to access. I probably won't ever get to all 88 keys, to be honest, but it takes longer to tune 65 keys on the keyboard than it does 15. So,
yep. I get it. I totally get it.
yeah, it's a really neat and it's weird because it triggers me when you say that because like for me personally, like my trauma's like I gotta get going, I gotta get moving, I gotta, and then it's a dance.
Yeah,
It's
it
a dance.
is. It really is. And you're right. I don't feel like the current culture that we're living in right now allows for the cycle of ramp up and then rest and then ramp up and then rest, and it's like it's normal, but it's not shared as normal. It's not like
Or the rest is
normalized with,
like a day,
yeah, maybe if
a
you're lucky.
day. Once
But no, you only need like a couple hours. It's fine. That's
and
not
I'm
real
like, I
though.
don't need a day. I need about 2 months. Some of this,
Yeah.
like I'm in this period where it's profound, and I don't know about you, but things will come in my life that will force my ass to sit down.
Yep.
Thou shalt sit down, it's kids get sick, shit doesn't work, I get
Yep.
sick, cars
Yep.
break down, cell phones don't work, boom, boom. Your purse gets stolen. That happened last year to me. Purse got stolen. And,
This is
so if
all
anybody
the
resonates
slowing
with
down.
this,
Yeah. This is
you
all
are
the
being
universe saying
told
slow down.
to slow down because you're probably trying to get yourself in alignment, but your mind can sometimes speed up too quickly than your body and even your heart. It's just, yeah. So I think that's really neat, though, Shell. I love the name of acceleration. It's acceleration
Acceleration services is what I call it. It
services.
just, yeah. So yeah, that's kind of the range of stuff that I do offer. Everything
Mm-hmm.
from channeling and acceleration services all the way down to general coaching, intuitive coaching, and then the artwork and the oracle deck.
I suspect you could make some beautiful buildings as well.
I
Or
probably could,
architect. Yeah.
but I haven't
So
gone that route yet.
we covered we sort of covered this, but I thought for a minute or two we could talk about who you feel most called to serve. And you said those who are ready to accelerate, but I thought that who in your heart, not so I'm reframing the target audience question that a lot of
Hmm.
businesses, because I have really struggled with answering my target audience because I think I'm making my target audience. It's with the new paradigm, and that's not what the business world teaches. And so I'm reframing this to who in your heart do you feel is being called to work with you and
Yeah.
partner up with you.
Actually, that's a really great point. I've also felt very, very similar in that like I target audience doesn't completely work for me, but the type of person that I work with is somebody who is forward thinking, who is ready to take on their own blocks, who's willing to take action, who's also willing to move themselves forward in a way that they aren't necessarily attached to how it goes, but they have a strong desire to get there, for their own reasons. And I don't work with people who whose values don't necessarily align with my own. So I'm not like, I don't work with people who are like looking to trick others, or who are like trying to get a leg up it, or like who are based in greed. Like to me that doesn't work. Um, more power to somebody if that's what they want, but that's not where my heart is. And that's not the type of people that I look to coach. But, somebody who's looking for abundance in their life, somebody who's looking um, for abundance, not just financial abundance, which is not we normally think of as abundance, but like also abundance in connection and abundance in love and abundance in health and abundance in play and abundance in social interaction and abundance in opportunity. Like those are also abundance things that we don't think about often. So I work with people who are ready to take the next step into their own abundance, who have their own idea of what abundance looks like for them, and they're ready to go. I also work with people um, who are really diving into self exploration as a way to change their outer world. So a lot of times, really the way I see it is we are mirrors and we are reflecting, and like what's in ourselves ends up being what's outside of ourselves. And when we really get that, we really know that deep inside, we can literally change everything around us by changing what's in here and by connecting to what's in here and by shifting how we think and take on the world and how we perceive things. So when we do that, things outside of us start to shift. And sometimes there can be a delay. Like sometimes we've shifted in here, but then the rest of the world around us, like you were saying, doesn't always match up because there's some integration that gets to happen. So I suppose the people that I would say I work with are people ready to go, people who are ready to look at themselves and ready to create the life they want, the way they want. And they're not attached to how, they're just attached to what they want. I also work with people who specifically have like, I'll say progressive mindsets. And when I mean that, I say people that are interested in things like zero waste technology and conscious consumerism and um, social connection and holistic health and like looking at the larger picture and seeing themselves as a piece of it, and not like the world revolves around them. So they want to get where they're going and they see themselves as a piece of the bigger picture.
I love that. I think
Yeah.
that's my target audience too. My target audience is people who like me. I'm honestly, I'm like snippy when people are asking me this. I was like, whoever likes me, it's my target audience. I mean, it's that
Yeah.
simple. I'm not going like it's so hyper masculine. It's like that predation. Like, who are you going after? I'm like, duh.
I don't
Who
know.
likes me? I know sometimes it's so odd. I'm not, and I've had to really like I'm in this space right now where I'm like, we are realigning what business is. We are redefining what magic is. We are redefining money. We are redefining abundance. I like to call it nourishment. Nourishment is the word big time in my life. And we're in this time period, but I love what you're saying. It's seekers, and those who know that. But there are shifts and delay. There are
Yeah.
shifts and delay of the outer world reflecting, but that's part of because linear time doesn't it can catch up quickly. Like you said, you had that week, right? But then you
Yeah.
had the over stimulation from it that you drew all these cards from. That's just amazing that you channeled that towards
Yeah.
an amazing thing you've created. So it's really neat.
Thank you.
Okay. And I think we've been talking a lot about this, but to get into specifics, so some people call this we're shifting from a 3D way of living to a 5D dimensional way, separation to unity consciousness, and another term is sort of the matrix. You could call it the mutant matrix. I've heard that before. To a one more of community. There's a lot of different ways. I don't mind calling it 5D, but it can sound a little bit hoaxy when just from I call it that now. I actually full-fledged call it that. Also, the word I really like is holographic. We're coming into a holographic way, and I'm really coming into some holographic stuff right now, Shell. Like to the point of whoa, it's like constantly on shrooms or something. I was like, what is going on? And
Yeah.
it's trippy, guys. And So, what is, I kind of explained just now what it means to me. To me, right now, it's super holographic.
Yeah.
So, for you, what is shifting into 5D or shifting into this innate? We know that what's true is that we are all interconnected. We're all unified. So, what is that? How is that manifest, like coming out in your life, or what does it mean to you?
So for me, it's about taking the things that we normally thought of as duality and creating them as a wholeness. So
Yeah.
one of the easiest ones to point to is masculine, feminine duality. And I'm not talking about gender, I'm talking about energy. So masculine energy,
Mm,
feminine energy, it could be also considered activating energy and receptive energy.
yes.
Might be another this.
Yeah.
Um, and it's realizing that in order to have an activating energy, you need to have a receptive energy. And so you literally can't have one without the other. So it's really, it's just two parts of a whole. It's not two parts, it's one. And really understanding that from more of a holistic perspective, like light and dark is another example. Like you can't really have light without dark. You can't really have dark without light. They are just two sides of the same coin. They're just one thing that we divided up to call it different things, but it's really the same. It's the same thing, just two aspects of it. And then for me, it also means that like what I'm seeing inside of me is also like what I'm seeing outside of me, which means that I am you and you're me. That's what it means to me, is that I am literally everyone and everyone's me. And so if there's something that's unhealed within me, then it's going to show up in others as well. Just as if there's something unhealed in them, it's going to show up in me. And I really believe that we as humans are deep mirrors for each other. And so if we show up as like if somebody constantly shows up as angry to us or as aggressive to us, there may be something in us that is creating that. I'm not saying that it's always that. Sometimes people project stuff onto us, and that's not what I'm talking about here.
Yeah.
But what I'm talking about is the stuff that's like it's the deeper stuff that it's like, wow, where am I showing up like this in my life? And because it's being reflected to me for some reason. And so I really see it as the unity consciousness is really like the coming together and the understanding that we really all are one. Another way I love to put this, it's probably a little more poetic, is we are many rivers all coming from one source.
Mm, I love that. Yeah. Yeah. And we do flow. The
Yeah.
process of how it's very Aquarian what you're saying too in the age of Aquarius. It's very Aquarius. That is a very good description. So then my last question and my fun one is I invite you to share with us one of you, it doesn't have to be one you're reading now, but what is a book that's really inspired you or has inspired you that you'd like to share with our audience for further investigation and knowledge?
So it's interesting because because I like to bring the esoteric into the real world, so to speak, and make it like really accessible and really like understanding that we do all this stuff, but it's really like, it's kind of like the concept of what monks said, or what the quote about monks. What do you do before enlightenment? You chop wood, you carry water. What do you do after enlightenment? You chop wood and carry water. It's because in the living of the day to day is really where the spirituality and the connection and the esoteric and the that all is for like it really is just about the constant connection of us. And so I like to read stuff that isn't necessarily in the esoteric community or within spirituality because I feel like it gives me a wider view of it. So one of the things that I have been reading or I've had read in the past is called Radical Honesty, which is more about being true to self and being true to others in a very sort of direct way. It can be a little bit abrasive, but it's a good read, and there are a lot of nuggets in it. Um, and I can't remember who wrote it, but the book is called Radical Honesty.
I like
Um,
that. It sounds like Sagittarius to me. Are you a Sagittarius? You have a lot of Sagittarius in your chart, Shell?
I actually I have a lot of fire, water, and air in my chart, and a lot of
Mm.
cardinal fire, water, and air in my chart. I have very little earth, very, very little earth. Um, and I am a fire sign in my sun sign, but I'm an air sign in my moon, and I'm a water sign in my rising. So,
Mm.
so there's a lot. I got a lot going on.
That's I have the combo of the moon and the sun is the most blunt combo you can have. Radical honesty. Aries moon and a Sagittarius sun is the most blunt
That's like in
combo.
your face on fire because I'm actually an Aries
Yeah.
sun. So I'm like,
Yeah, are you? Yeah, and blunt is actually, especially when you're a woman in our society, there's a way to do it in a nurturing way, which I'm coming into. There's a way of bluntness, but I really love that radical honesty because I've had a few. It's funny this week I've been pretty radically honest with a few men because I've been
mhm,
practicing graceful boundaries with narcissists. Let's be honest. Let's save that for another long talk on how to practice graceful boundaries with narcissists. But
I could go on
I've
and
been
on.
called rude. Oh,
Yeah.
this is a good sign. I was like, oh, this is a good sign. I need to move on. Because so this is my new thing now to tell people in a polite way that is my radical honesty. We are not a good fit
Hmm.
to work together.
Yeah.
And I wonder, I have been using this without this, basically my way of saying, I don't like you, or this isn't gonna, like this, you're a narcissist. Like, I'm not gonna hang out like without me. I used to kind of tell people this, but now the bluntness is no, thank you.
No, thank you. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we are
It's a
not a
different
good
kind of
fit at
bluntness.
this time.
Yeah, it's a different
And
kind of bluntness. Yeah, I hear you.
and it's not mean, where the other ones were me and my trauma trying to wound them. I don't wound you by telling you that. And I realize that's kind of used as the word professional, but I'm not being professional. I'm not this, like in the HR world and stuff, like they
Yep.
say those, I go, no, I mean this. Like, this is now I know we're not a good fit. And I know by me wounding you or trying to wound you that I only wound myself, because but we also can't work together. So at this time.
Yeah, I love the idea that like telling someone no just opens up both people to a bigger, better yes. So
I
like
like, yeah.
by saying no, it offers the opportunity for somebody to find a person who's really a yes, or for you to find a person who's really a yes. And I
Yeah,
really that's that's big. That's a big deal.
it is. Well, there's a big movement right now with saying no. And I particularly really like no, thank you. And we're not a good fit, instead of just saying no. But sometimes I say no too. But I think that radical honesty is deeply needed and in this culture. So thank you. I haven't checked that book yet, but I actually could use some advice on that in this next few days, because I'm trying to find the exact right partners right now that really are a good fit. And um anyway, that sounds like a wonderful, well, and radical makes me think of radiant too. So it
Hmm.
makes me think of like the fire, the true, it is a fire. It is
Yeah.
true about signing trust, or I'm sorry, truth with fire signs, because it is a purifier. It is a fire, and it's a radiant beam of, this isn't true, so this doesn't align. This, I don't know. It's such a cool, yeah. Well, thank you, Shell, for coming on. I
Thank you
will
for having me.
yeah, I'd love to have you on again. And we can talk a little bit more about even dive in deeper with your drawings and your background. I think especially as a woman, I so many, I just think it's astounding, because it wasn't, we all know science and engineering, they have specialized scholarships for women, because most women don't do it.
Yep.
So I I find that I've always admired the art of the architect. I've always had, I'm not an architect in a classic sense, but I have such a profound appreciation for this. And I really think that's what I would call you very architectural in how you, in those drawings. And I don't know if that resonates with you, but
Yeah.
the gifts of sacred geometry are architectural to me.
Yeah, there really is like they're all mathematically derived and based, and it's all about angles, and it's really like it's really about measurements and geometry in this context, and that is where my engineer brain comes in, is the the building of the structure that the images come into. Yeah. So
It's you ever walk into a I think I know why where some buildings creep me out and I don't like them. And it isn't always ghosts. It's because their angles are off.
yeah, it happens. Yeah.
I have a friend whose house is built in alignment with the sun, the rising of the sun, all the angles in the house. Just standing in this house, it's like, I just feel the light in this home, and I'm like, this is a whole new place. And it's in my heart to like build a house in alignment with whatever this person did, in alignment with the rising and the setting of the sun and all the angles. It's extra, and that's why I have I get down on my knees, mad respect on that stuff because it's so beautiful. So before I get on another tangent though, so thank you, Chele, for your time, for
Thank
sharing your
you.
greatest gifts with us, and for coming on Priestess House. And I'll be posting this soon, and I will include your website and your Facebook page and everything like that. So I'll let people be able to get a hold of you. So thank you, Chele. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Ciao.
Bye, Kate.